Hi everyone, I'm Rich. This is my first video looking at how to accompany improv musicals. The topic of this video will be musical form, in particular how many measures you might have in a section of music. First we're going to talk about what an improv musical is. In an improv show, actors will make up scenes and dialogue based on suggestions from the audience. In an improv musical, you have songs added to the scenes of the improv show. So it's very much like a stage musical, except everything is made up. All the music and the lyrics are improvised. So there are troupes doing musical improv all over the country. Baby Wants Candy, they're based in LA, New York, and Chicago. Off Book is an improv musical podcast. They've also got some YouTube videos. Rumple Teaser is a troupe out of New York. They've got a lot of videos on YouTube. When you see skilled musicians and singers improvise a song in a musical, it can look really amazing, and you think, how do they do that? How can a musician and a singer improvise a song on the spot? I started learning how to do it a few years ago, and I found that there were not a lot of resources, and I kind of had to learn by watching a lot of shows, mostly on YouTube. So I decided to make some videos and maybe help others who are in my situation. Hopefully it will. All right, our first topic is form, and maybe the most basic aspect of form, which is how long is a section of a song. So songs have different sections. They've got verses, they've got choruses and bridges. So this is true of basically any recorded song, and it's also true of improvised songs. Now, to make one up, it really helps to have a sense of how long they will be, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's not easy to actually figure out how long sections of songs are. You see a lot of differences in tempo, differences in song style, differences in the way singers sing songs. And I found that in most cases, sections can be counted off in 16 measure groups. So we're going to look at some examples of how that works. Our examples are going to come from recordings. Now, not all recorded songs follow the 16 measure model, but a lot do. And these examples are quite similar to what you find in an improvised musical. Now, improv singers tend to sing 4 lines per section. So, for example, 4 lines in a verse, or 4 lines in a chorus or bridge. Now, this is a form that's very common in pop songs, so it really comes naturally to improvised musical singers. In addition, there's a book, Instant Songwriting, by Nancy Howland Walker, and that book specifically teaches the 4-line section. That's a book for singing improvisers. So if a section is 16 measures long, and you've got 4 lines in a section, that gives us 4 measures per line. So we're going to look at our first example to see how that works. So the first song we're going to look at is Don't Stop Believin', which is the classic rock song by Journey. Now let's look at the lyrics of the first verse.
For here, just notice that the lyrics fall naturally into 4 lines. Don't worry about trying to follow along with them.
Now let's talk about the music. The song is about 120 beats per minute, and there are 4 musical phrases with 4 chords each. And each chord in the song is 1 measure long. So the first phrase in the song goes like this. It goes E, B, C minor, A. The second phrase is very similar. It just has 1 chord different. It goes E, B, G minor, A. Now the third and the fourth phrases just repeat the first 2. Now I'll play the whole verse progression and count off the measures as I go. And this is actually how I count measures if I listen to a recording or if I'm watching an improv show. So tempo 120. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There we go. That's a 16 measure verse with 4 lines, 4 measures per line. Next song we'll look at is a show tune. It's All That Jazz from Chicago. It's similar to Don't Stop Believing in that it has 4 musical phrases, and there are 4 measures each. And lyrics look like this. Now let's look at the 4 musical phrases in the chord progression. The tempo in All That Jazz is about 128, which is about this. I'm not going to run through the progression, but I'm just going to go ahead and play through it and count off the measures. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the first phrase. The second phrase is almost exactly the same, but it just doesn't end on a 5 chord. 5, 6, 7, 8. So the third phrase starts on a 5 chord. 9, 10, 11, 12. Then the fourth phrase gives us a cadence back to 1. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So in that case, it actually extends a little bit beyond the 16 measure phrase. That's just sort of a dramatic effect. It ends on first beat of 17. But it's not uncommon for that to happen in show tunes or pop songs. So now we'll look at an example that's a little different from those two. The previous two songs had 4 4-measure phrases. This example is Stand By Me. It has 2 8-measure phrases instead. So here's a quick look at the lyrics. 4 lines. Tempo for this song is again about 120. So let's count that off. That's in the key of A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Second 8-measure phrase is exactly the same as the first. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Now let's check out an example from an improv musical. We'll see one verse of the song, and it has an 8-measure musical phrase that plays twice.
I've been a monk for 100 years. I started when I was young. Now I'm getting on in years. I think I'm going to die soon. Head up to the skies, and I will unveil my holy disguise.
So we looked at a few songs that have medium fast tempos. Things get a little trickier when we look at slower tempo songs like ballads. So songs in faster tempos are going to have 16 measures, 4 beats per measure. And that will include songs that are about 120 to 160 beats per minute. Ballads will often fall in the 60 to 90 beats per minute range, which is half the tempo of our faster songs. So the 16 measure form can work with these slower songs with a modification. So we can treat the song as having cut time. So basically the tempo is cut in half and we're only counting 2 beats per measure. But if you think about it, it makes sense. A section that is 120 beats per minute with 4 beats per measure will have the same duration as a section that is 60 beats per minute with 2 beats per measure. And so again, the 16 measure form works. So let's look at an example with a slower tempo. The example we're going to look at is Hello by Lionel Richie. Now the lyrics also have a 4-line structure, and we'll take a quick look at that. And here we also have the 4 musical phrases. So it's like Don't Stop Believing, and it's like all that jazz. In this case, the tempo is 60, which is half the speed of Don't Stop Believing. We're going to count 2 beats per measure. So if we were at 120, we would count 4 beats. So here's 120. And there we would count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the beats of our measure. Now if we're going 60 beats per minute, we're going to count 2 beats per measure. So it's going to go like this. 1, 2, 1, 2. And so that's going to make it come out the same with 16 measures. Now let's take a listen to music. The verse has 4 musical phrases, and the first 3 phrases are exactly the same. So we're going to hear that repeated 3 times. Now the fourth is almost exactly the same. It just has one chord different. It ends on a different chord. Let's get our tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Can't you see? So we see we could count out the song in 16 measures at 60 beats per minute if we count 2 beats per measure. Alternatively, you can just treat ballads as having double the tempo and count it off in 4. So in that case, it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's just up to you whether you want to count the song in a slower tempo or a faster tempo. Okay, so we've seen how the 16 measure guideline works. Let's talk about some caveats to it. The first you can probably guess, which is that singers in an improvised musical can do unpredictable things. So you got to pay attention to them. You might have to make a section shorter or longer. In addition, at the end of a song, you'll often draw the section out to kind of work up to a big finish. So our second caveat has to do with choruses. So in choruses, you get repeated phrases. And a lot of times those repeated phrases can have a fast pace. So this is common in rock style songs especially. So what you get is short 2-measure phrases repeated several times. And these choruses will generally be 8 measures long. Because if they went on any longer, you'd have a lot of repetition. We'll look at a couple examples of those. So the first is a rock song. It's Get Off My Cloud by the Rolling Stones. Hey, you, get off of my cloud. Hey, you, get off of my cloud. Hey, you, get off of my cloud. Don't hang around because two's a crowd.
It's about legacy, legacy.
Oh, what the tiny kids remember about you and me. Legacy.
Legacy.
Our third caveat concerns middle tempo songs. So we talked about fast songs in the 120 to 160 beats per minute range. And those you count off at 4 beats per measure. We also talked about slower songs that are in the 60 to 90 BPM range. And those you can count off at 2 beats per measure. So what about those songs in between in that 90 to 120 BPM range? So a lot of it can depend on what the singer does, whether they're going to sing phrases in 2 measures or sing the phrases in 4 measures. Now they're still saying 4 phrases per section though. So if they're singing 4 beats a line, then you've got kind of a slow mid-tempo song. Our first example is going to be With or Without You by U2. That song is in 112 beats per minute. So I'll play and sing the first half of the first verse. So 2 lines of the first verse. See the stone set in your eyes. See the thorn twist in your side. I'll wait for you. So that was 2 lines of the first verse. So we were going at 4 beats per measure. And in that second line, what you had was a lot of space in the chords, and you had words that were stretched out longer. Our second example is also 112 beats per minute. And this is the song by the Beatles, With a Little Help from My Friends. Now in this case, there are 4 lines in the verse, and each line goes over 2 measures. So it's basically twice as fast as With or Without You. What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song, and I'll try not to sing out of key. Okay, so we sang the whole first verse, and it took as long as half of the first verse of With or Without You. The takeaway from all of this is that if you're going to play a song in that mid-tempo range, you need to pay close attention to the singer. You need to follow what they do.
Not a penny for the thoughts of the turtle, oh no man. We're talking dollars now, 500,000. Gonna know what those turtles think, gonna give the world hell. With the thoughts of the turtle inside their heads, inside their turtle shell. Whoa, whoa, we finally got some money. We finally got some money. Whoa, we finally got some money.
I'm excited about the money too, but I'm also nervous 'cause I told all the turtles my secret.
Oh, wow.
They know where the bodies are, they know who I like and who I hate, and they might rat me out. So when we pay to make the turtles talk, I may have to kill them. I don't wanna do it, but I also can't go to jail for all that I did there.
So now the fourth caveat. If you're an accompanist watching this, you might be thinking, I don't do that. Our troupe doesn't do that. Our sections are longer or shorter. Our lines are faster. Our singers sing more lines. Our singers sing fewer lines. And that's cool. And you can do whatever you want, whatever your troupe likes to do. What I'm trying to do is describe what happens in a lot of shows and a lot of songs that you might see live or on YouTube, and hopefully give you some insight into how you might imitate them. Okay, and so that's actually the end of our first discussion on improv musicals. This will help us sort of build a foundation for talking about other things. In the future, I hope to look at some more topics. For example, more musical forms, chord progressions, styles, and some other things as well. And that's all. Thanks for watching.